Welcome back to another Explainer. So have you ever walked through a massive modern biopark or aquarium and just marveled at the sheer variety of life? I mean, it really can feel like we've managed to bring the entire animal kingdom safely behind glass. But what you rarely hear about is the menagerie of the invisible. These are the incredible animals that completely defy our attempts to contain them. Today, we're diving straight into the fascinating biology of species that are so uniquely adapted to their worlds that keeping them captive is, quite literally, impossible.
To understand this sort of map of the invisible, we're going to break down the three absolutely insurmountable walls of captivity today. We've got the need for endless space, biological fragility, and the burden of intelligence. And finally, we'll resolve all this by looking at where they truly belong. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The Invisible Menagerie. The Illusion of the Modern Zoo. Okay, let me ask you a question that might suddenly seem super obvious once you really think about it. Why have you never seen a great white shark in an aquarium? Seriously, you've seen tigers, elephants, massive whales, right? But never the ocean's absolute most famous, iconic predator. And let me tell you, it isn't for a lack of trying. Marine parks have literally spent millions over the decades trying to host them, and they always fail.
And the reason why sets up our entire core thesis for today. Human engineering simply cannot perfectly replicate every wild ecosystem. It's really that simple. For certain giants and hyper-specialists, their wildness is just inextricably linked to their exact environment. We can build these massive tanks and high-tech climate-controlled domes, but nature's engineering, it's infinitely more complex than our own.
Section 2. The need for endless space. The spatial barrier of migration. Just consider the stark contrast between these two worlds. On one hand, you have the open ocean. We're talking thousands of miles of dynamic, endless migration routes. On the other hand, you've got captivity, the static, frankly claustrophobic dimensions of even the world's largest artificial tank. You see, a great white shark's biology actually requires constant forward momentum across vast oceanic expanses just to process oxygen. In a tank, they literally bump into walls. Plus, their incredibly sensitive electroreceptors are just totally overwhelmed by all that glass and concrete. It's sensory overload.
And hey, it's not just the giants of the deep sea. 6,000. That's 6,000 miles. That is the distance a swallow might migrate in a single, boundless journey. Just think about the absolute absurdity of caging an animal built entirely for the boundless limits of the sky. To a migratory bird like a swallow, a cage isn't just a physical barrier, It's a complete denial of its fundamental biological purpose. This perfectly illustrates how the need for space takes on completely different, yet extreme forms. Great white sharks require that endless forward open ocean navigation. Narwhals, the Arctic unicorns if you will, they rely on these extreme, highly pressurized deep dives beneath the Arctic ice just to hunt and thrive. You literally cannot build a tank deep enough or cold enough to replicate their hunting grounds. And swallows, they're adapted for boundless atmospheric migration. For these creatures, the world itself is their enclosure.
Section 3. Biological Fragility. Hyper-specialized diets and immune systems. Now this is where an animal's incredible evolutionary superpower actually becomes a lethal trap. Hyper-specialization. Basically, it's an evolutionary adaptation where an organism survives on incredibly specific, highly localized dietary or environmental conditions. Now, in the wild, it's amazing. It means almost zero competition for food. But outside of that exact ecosystem, it becomes completely unmanageable.
Take the injury lemur of Madagascar, for example. These guys require over 60 specific types of native leaves to survive. Over 60. If a zoo tries to feed them a standard primate diet, bananas, commercial monkey biscuits, stuff like that, it's actually toxic to them. Their gut microbes rely exclusively on the native flora of Madagascar, and you can't exactly just order that on a standard supply truck.
Then we have the saiga antelope. They have these incredibly unique, kind of bizarre, enlarged snouts. And those snouts evolved specifically to filter out the heavy dust kicked up by herds on the dry summer steppes, and to warm up the freezing air during harsh winters. That brilliant snout is tuned perfectly to one specific ecosystem. So, the second they are removed from those steppes, their unique respiratory needs cause them to succumb incredibly fast to disease.
Unfortunately, this biological fragility creates a really tragic timeline of failure when we try to move these specialists. It happens fast. Within hours, the sheer stress of capture induces severe psychological shock. Give it a few days, and their highly localized, hyper-specialized gut biomes completely crash. And within just weeks, we see total immune system and respiratory failure. Their bodies just shut down when they're deprived of their incredibly specific environmental inputs.
Section 4. The burden of intelligence, psychological and social decay.
I want you to consider this difficult truth. The confinement of highly intelligent, socially complex giants leads inevitably to emotional distress and altered behavioral dynamics. When we talk about cetaceans and great apes, we aren't just dealing with basic biological needs like food and water. We are dealing with real emotional weight, deep memories, and incredibly intricate social bonds.
Because there is just a profound, undeniable difference between wild and captive societies. In the wild, orcas live in these complex, generational pods. We're talking about animals that have their own cultures, unique dialects, and family structures that span entire oceans, often staying with their mothers for life. Now compare that to confinement. Artificial, completely randomly grouped orcas placed together in a concrete pool. Stripping them of these ocean-wide structures leads to severe psychological decay, immense distress, and highly unnatural aggression.
Mountain gorillas experience these exact same painful steps. Step 1. They're removed from their incredibly complex primate social hierarchies. Step 2. They experience enclosure-induced psychological and spatial stress. And Step 3. We see the manifestation of unnatural behavioral decay. Mountain gorillas are so socially delicate and so deeply attached to their wild family groups that even just attempting to place them in a zoo environment leads to profound depression. For these magnificent animals, high intelligence literally becomes an unbearable burden when they're behind glass.
Section 5. Where they truly belong. The necessity of wild habitats.
Pulling this all together, we can see exactly how these three barriers completely dismantle the illusion of captivity. Spatially, animals like the great white, the narwhal, and the swallow fail because of their massive migration and diving ranges. Biologically, the Indri lemur and saiga antelope fail due to their hyper-specialized diets and respiration. And psychologically, the orca and mountain gorilla fail because of profound social and emotional needs. The simple truth is, we just cannot build a world better than the one nature already designed for them.
So I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. If an animal cannot be kept alive in captivity, does that make its wild habitat even more vital to protect? If we can't save the Indri lemur in a greenhouse or protect a great white shark in a tank, then our only option, really our profound responsibility, is to fiercely protect the oceans, the steppes, and the forests they call home. Conservation in the wild isn't just the best option for these specific animals, it is the absolute only option. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it changed the way you view the wild world around us. See you next time.